He was a corporal in the United States Marine Corps Reserve and is a veteran of the Iraq War. He is an outspoken opponent of the U.S. military intervention in Iraq and has received media attention related to anti-war protest activities. And he's been known to commit random acts of journalism as well. So here's Adam Kokesh, everyone.
Yeah!
Is the man here?
No!
I hope not. You? Oh no, see, that's the problem. There's a little bit of the man in all of us. And that's what we're getting past. That's what we're evolving past. But I gotta, as a libertarian, we always have to be academically borderline at the risk of being nerdy. Does that ever happen to libertarians? Being intellectually correct? Ron Paul was not the only politician to mention the Federal Reserve. I think Michelle Bachmann once mentioned it and then even pretended to understand it. So just to be technically correct, often imitated, never duplicated, a politician that doesn't have an interest in the federal government being able to rip everybody off might have the courage to talk about the Federal Reserve System.
Yeah.
And now we see the younger generations, I'm 30, I just turned 30, and I'll be telling people that for the next 10 years, but I just turned 30. And people my age and younger, and I don't mean to create an artificial divide here, because there's something about older libertarians too. I'll come back to that. But about people who grew up with the internet, about people my age and younger, the millennial generation. I barely count, I'm almost too old to count myself. But for those of us that grew up with the internet, that have it hardwired, there's a kind of lack of tolerance for the kinds of problems that only exist for lack of information. Really, you're gonna suffer because you don't know something? Sorry, does not compute. Really? And what happens when you turn 18 in America today? You think kids are stupid? Because really, the government thinks you're stupid. They think everybody's stupid. But the government must really, really, really think kids are stupid. And especially now, especially the way that they're waking up with the internet and learning outside of the government-run propaganda centers masquerading as schools what reality is all about.
Yeah.
That, geez, when I turn 18 and my share of the federal debt, very, very, very conservatively estimated, is $45,000. What's the latest number on that? If you count entitlements, right, you can calculate it and be like, it's actually a few $100,000. If the government stopped spending money, except for entitlements, I would be in debt for the rest of my life. But you tell that to a kid who's turning 18, who can't find a freaking job. Yeah, your personal share of the federal debt is at least $45,000. What's the reaction to that?
Hey,
it's not my debt. I don't think so. And you know what else makes libertarians unique? We ask why. We ask why, and we demand answers. And when it comes to the government, you don't hear a lot of really good answers, do you?
Nope.
And this is what's so special about, I think, the older generation of libertarians today who are seeing this younger generation come up. I want to say, hold on tight, the cavalry is coming.
Yeah.
For those of you that have gotten it, for those of you that have figured this out, who didn't grow up with the internet, who are a part of this new awareness, you get to be a part of human evolution in a way that no other generation in human history gets to do. To see this awareness that is coming up from the internet. What it is doing fundamentally, if the internet is a tool of information, what it is doing with the Federal Reserve, it is literally rendering it obsolete.
Yeah!
Now you would think, well, if it's obsolete, Adam, it has to have a legitimate purpose, right? You can't render theft obsolete, can you? Can you render murder obsolete? Well, you would hope you wouldn't have to. But in the case of the Fed, it's becoming painfully obvious that by its justifications even, it's two mandates, right? It's going to Maintain full employment. How's that working for you? It's going to ensure price stability. Like, and I have to step back and go, like, really, how gullible and short-sighted do you have to be to accept this scam? How gullible do you have to be like, yep, prices should just stay the same forever? Yeah, wouldn't that be great? But you know what? As long as human beings are gullible, are victimizable, are capable of being hoodwinked, exploitation will happen. And that's how the Fed got instituted. They said these are the things that the Fed is going to do. It is going to ensure full employment, and it is going to maintain price stability. Now, anybody who knows anything about economics would be like, well, if we maintain full employment, then aren't we all just going to be hunters and gatherers eventually, and we'll all be fully employed, and we'll all be living in a very primitive lifestyle? If we don't allow people to become unemployed and start making cars, we're all going to have horses and buggies still. And you have to have full employment because you don't want any of the horse and buggy manufacturers to go out of business. Couldn't let that happen. I mean, really, is this not painfully obvious? But 100 years ago, people ate it up. At least those that knew enough to even question it, those that were in a position to do it. But back then, when your connection to the world was newspapers, and it was Thomas Jefferson who said, those who read newspapers are less informed than those who read nothing at all. Well, when it was newspapers convincing you that the Federal Reserve was a good idea, yeah, that might be a little information detrimental to your awareness of the world. Because if you can stop and think, it's really easy to see the holes in this. Price stability. Price stability. Now, if you're happy with the status quo, price stability is great. Yeah, let's just keep prices the same indefinitely, no problem. But if you think about it, the natural course of human productivity is to increase productive output and for prices to come down and quality of life to go up because you can buy more stuff. Right. I mean, if you believe in material happiness, I know we're not going to try to confuse those issues today. This is end the Fed, not end unphilosophical thinking. But I think that's part of the movement as well, right? Being able to look at things and asking why objectively and get all the way to the bottom of the rabbit hole. And by the way, the only point at which you reach the bottom of the rabbit hole is when you realize that there is no bottom. So, price stability. If prices are supposed to go down and quality of life is supposed to go up and prices stay the same, where does that excess productivity go? Does nobody stop and ask? I mean,